Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is. Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And as I've said before, we are doing very few of these videos. I don't go looking for stuff, I don't care. But on occasion, when people send me something that I think is worth discussing, that's worthwhile, I'm going to go ahead and cover it. Because otherwise, we're just going to talk about strength. We're going to talk about what I'm doing with my clients. And again, teaching people to be strong and not get hurt. Well, one of the issues we have is that I focus a lot on that. I want all of you guys out there to be able to deadlift over 500 pounds when you're in your 50s, when you're in your 60s. That should be the sort of goals that most of us have. Being strong for life. Well, I did a video the other day that was done as a client tutorial that I kind of showed to everyone else. I put out and made it public discussing arm bend on the deadlift. Well, when I put that out, a bunch of people were like, hey, this same day, and it's like 5 people put this in the comments. Larry Wheels' new training partner, Andrew, who I've never heard of, don't know who the guy is. I know nothing about him. So I have no personal beef, no personal bias with this guy. He guy's obviously jacked. He's obviously strong. That's what I know about him. Okay, that's all I know about this man. That he's training with Larry, he's jacked, he's pretty damn strong. Okay? But I also know his deadlift form is horrific from an injury perspective. And when I say that, I'm not talking about, oh, it's just he's using a special form to lift more weight and it might be risky. The deadlift form that he uses, he could actually biomechanically lift more weight if he quit doing it. So the dangerous stuff that he's doing is actually hurting his max. This guy could probably pull another 50 pounds if he quit doing this. But it's the arm bend. It's the arm bend. And I'll link the tutorial down below so that people understand what I'm talking about. Because again, I made it and it was coincidence. I actually had uploaded it 2 days before, had it on private, made it public. And again, people pointed that out. And I'm not saying this to be a hater. I have nothing against this guy. And as I've done stuff like this, discussing stuff with Larry, when Larry does stuff that's going to get him hurt, and a lot of it has gotten him hurt now, I've always said, I'm saying this not out of hate. I'm saying this out of love for strength sports. I'm saying this because I don't want to see guys who have the potential to be at the top and stay at the top to destroy their bodies and get knocked out of the game. I don't want to see that. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see Larry Wheels get hurt. At least, let me rephrase that. No one who isn't a dick wants to see Larry Wheels get hurt. Okay, the guy is obviously a very gifted lifter who trains very hard. He does a lot of dumb stuff. And it does get him hurt, and it's going to continue to get him hurt. But I say that out of love for the iron game, right? Because I'm an older dude. I'm middle-aged. I still deadlift over 600, which you guys see me do on camera in my 40s. I'm not at their level. Well, these guys are probably all the way stronger than me. I know Larry's stronger than me. I'm going to assume Andrew's stronger than me based on what I observe. Not an unreasonable assumption. But that's not the point. These guys are getting hurt. That's not how you stay caught up with me. What I mean is, even if you're deadlifting 900 pounds, if you're hurt and destroyed before you're 40, I'm still ahead, right? And that's what it's all about. It is about, hey, can I deadlift 650 in my 40s? Can we bench 400 in our 40s? You can't get beat up and banged up. And I don't know Andrew's backstory. I don't know his history, but I know what I saw in the video. And a guy at his strength level who is pulling the way he is going to rip a bicep. It is going to happen. I'm not saying it might happen, because it's one thing to say, well, we're taking a risk. It's a Russian roulette. No, he is going to tear a bicep. And it's a case of a guy who maybe didn't learn, he didn't get proper instruction, didn't learn how to deadlift, has phenomenal strength genetics, blasts a ton of gear, and walks in and starts lifting. And no one ever taught him. Maybe he didn't do any reading, because that happens a lot with really gifted guys. It does happen. Guys, they don't do any research because they just excel. They're like, I don't need to learn anything because I'm just good naturally. I'm gifted, and then when they go on drugs, those extreme gifts they have, they just become absolute monsters. We all see this, guys, in strength sports. But then when you start looking at what they do, they don't know the basics because they never bothered to learn because they didn't have to. They were so good without them. But that also means they don't learn things about bar paths and movements and joint angles that cause major injuries at a very, very high rate because they don't go learn the basics and understand the how and the why. Okay, arm bend tears biceps. And I did that whole tutorial on that explaining you have to be locked out. You need to be locked out from the time you touch the bar till the time that you turn loose of it. Okay? You should never, ever, ever bend your arm once you grab it. Now, I'm going to see some strongman competitors who are going to say, no, that's not true. You guys don't do a deadlift. You can call it whatever you want, call it a strap lift. It's not a deadlift. You aren't at the same risk of bicep tears with double overhand using straps. Okay? It's a different movement. I mean, we can call it whatever we want. We can call it a strongman deadlift. There you go. But it's not a deadlift, and you don't have the same injury risk. It's a different movement pattern, different biomechanics. Grip isn't involved. You don't ever have a supine hand. None of that's involved. They can play by a different set of rules. If you're going to pull a bar with your bare hands, we've got different rules. Okay? And having arm bend will get you hurt. And the thing that I would always point out, people say, well, I need to bend it sometimes to get tight. No, 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 you lose tightness. You can't get tight if you bend the arm. You lose your tightness the moment it happens. And I always tell guys, if part of your setup involves bending the arm to get set up, you need to turn loose of the bar and walk away and come back to it. And re-grip the bar with straight arms. It's not possible to stay tight once you bend the arm. You lose all your tightness. And as you approach the bar, you want to be as tight as possible. Why? That's how we avoid getting hurt. Okay, a looseness and slack at any point on a really heavy deadlift, and this guy's moving some weight. That's how you get hurt. Because you jerk. Right? We want to pull. You want to pull the weight, not jerk. Now, the obvious one is the bicep wrist, the slack in the biceps. And we'll come over to low back in a minute too. He's got that slack in the biceps, and he maintains it all the way through the lift. It's not like he does it and then pulls it straight. That's what happens with the strongmen when they use the straps. Sometimes they'll bend because they're fat and they have to squat a certain way to the barbell because of a big belly. Well, this guy doesn't have a big belly. Look, he looked pretty lean to me. As far as I could tell, even in clothes, this guy's not fat. So he doesn't have that excuse. But they'll lock it straight before they pull. So they'll bend and then they'll jerk it up. And they'll use their big belly to help bounce it off the floor. Because again, it presses against their quads. Fat strong man deadlift. But then they've got the straps. In his case, he maintains that bent elbow all the way to the top. Here's the problem. He's pulling against heavy bands. Over 100 pounds of bands. Now, before people jump in and say, well, it was listed as 100 kilos, I work with bands a lot, okay? I'm just going to go back to my other point. It was more than 100 pounds of bands. It probably didn't have, with a black band loop that way, 100 kilos at the top. They might, but I would need to measure it. I have those same bands. I would need to measure it. I don't think it's going to be the case. But it's more than 100 pounds of bands. All right, bands tend to jerk you down when you go up. I know because I do banded deadlifts. I like banded deadlifts. I mean, let's come over to the point. I think what they were displaying was an excellent deadlift assistance, right, or accessory movement. That's an excellent deadlift accessory movement. Okay, you can build a lot of power doing with that movement they're doing. So I don't want anyone to think I'm bashing on it. I'm actually a fan. It's actually a smart exercise. But it's different, and it jerks you. Now, you're talking about hitting the top, because I think he had around 500 pounds, right? It was about 500 pounds on the bar, roughly, with over 100 pounds band tension. You hit that at the top, and it jerks you. He still has the arm bend. Okay, he was already at risk of tearing a bicep pulling off the floor. That band pulling on it there is going to tear his bicep. But he's going to tear one eventually no matter what. But the problem is that what I worry about, Larry has a massive audience. A lot of young, impressionable kids see this, and then they think it's okay to have arm bend. It's not okay. You're going to hurt yourselves. You're going to hurt yourselves if you do that. Don't do it. Now we come back over, well, what about low back? Well, if you have the arm bent, you have slack. You've gotten loose. You're now jerking the weight up. Puts extra strain on your erectors. Okay. When you're doing a 600 plus pound deadlift, there's, especially conventional, there is already plenty of stress on your erectors. Okay. We got plenty of stress on the erectors. You have to keep them tight. It's in your best interest to keep everything tight and not jerk. So if you've already bent the elbows and then you jerk up, you're now jerking also with the erectors and the low back. Okay, again, this is how people get hurt. Don't make the assumption that because someone is very gifted and is very, very strong, you should be emulating what they are doing. And I'm not being a form Nazi. This is just basic common stuff that every strength coach knows and teaches. Okay, but we've got the case of some of these guys, they haven't worked with other strength coaches. They've just relied upon maybe their genetics, a bunch of gear. And again, the guy's obviously a very genetically gifted lifter. I mean, that doesn't seem to be in question. But you go that route and they don't learn things, and then they get hurt and they fade out and they fade away. You know, they have a few years of a good run in strength sports, and then they're gone. They're over. They're done. Because they're broken. Right? That's not good for the sport. Okay, that's not good for promoting strength when we see that happen. And I personally love heavy lifting. The last thing I ever want to see is people get hurt, whether they're beginners or whether they're elite guys like this. Okay, I don't want to see them get hurt doing something that I'm passionate about and something that I love. Just how I feel about it. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.